Sometimes we have to talk about things which are a little bit less fun, but they are probably important in many of our programs. So we should have a look at what is a global variable and what is a local variable and what is the concept of scope. So to have a look at this, let's create here a very small program. I will declare a variable a, which is equal to 1. I will create a setup function, and I will do another function, just a custom function called my test. And my test will just print something. I'm gonna print here test. Setup will print, I'm gonna use print ln, will print setup. I'm gonna correct this print ln, and here I will call my test. So I'm gonna run this program, and it's just printing setup and test. So when the program starts, it declares a variable a, and it initializes this variable. So it gives an initial value of 1. But we are not using this variable anywhere yet. So then it's declaring a function here, which is called later. This function just prints test. It does nothing spectacular. And so when the program starts, it calls setup, and then it prints setup, and then it calls my test, which makes it jump to the other function and print test. Okay. Instead of printing setup, let's print the variable a on both cases. So now I should see a 2 times. So there we see there's printing 1.0. It's printing 1.0 here inside setup, and then it's printing 1.0 in the my test function. So now let's see the difference between a global variable and a local variable. This first variable here is global. It's accessible, or it's visible from any function in the program. The function is declared here, and you can access the variable inside my test function, and you can access it inside my setup function. So you can access this variable anywhere in the program. But if I declare here another variable, float b equals 77, now this function here is local. I'm gonna type here local. So this variable only exists inside the setup function, not inside my test. How can I prove this? So I'm gonna just print here print ln b. So what will now the program do? It just prints 1, then it prints 77, which is the value of b, then it calls my test and prints a again, which is 1. So now I'm gonna try to print b from my test. Let's see what happens now. Really nothing. It doesn't even start. It says it cannot find anything named b. So b doesn't exist inside my test. b only exists during the execution of setup, but when it leaves the function, it stops existing. So it has a very short life. This global variable, the variables we declare here at the top, they have a long life. They will exist all the time during the execution of our program. Now I could declare here another variable, another b variable. So now I have a b variable inside my test, and I have a b variable inside setup. This is also local. They are local because they are declared inside a function. They are not declared outside. So now the program will work, and it's printing first 1, which is a, then 77, which is b here, the b inside the setup. Then it jumps to my test, and then it prints 1 again, which is this global variable, and then it's printing 55, which is this local variable here. And they are not mixed. They are 2 independent variables. They have the same name, but they have nothing to do with each other. You could think, oh, maybe it's the same one, and maybe here I'm changing the value of b, and then when I come back from executing my test, b is different. but I can show you this is not happening. If I print now println b, you can see I'm printing b before calling my test and after calling my test. And you will see that this still has the same value. So you have here the value of b, then you are inside the myTest function, and then it's printing 1 and 55. And finally, when it's back from executing my test, it prints again 77, which is the value of b inside this function. So now the question is, why use local or global variables? Why not make them all global? It seems easy. You just declare all the variables at the top and you can access them from everywhere. And yeah, it may sound easier, but when programs grow more complicated, when you have 50 variables on a program and you declare them all global, it really becomes a global mess. It becomes really complicated to manage, and it's very easy to make mistakes. So you should only use global variables when you really need them. And every time when it's possible, just use local variables. So when do you need a global variable? So let me give you an example of when you can use a global variable, or when you have to use a global variable. We have been creating animations using the draw function, and sometimes we increased the value of one variable, like this one, a, and we print here println a. So in this case, this variable a should be global. We want the variable to be increasing, like you can see here. If you made this variable local, I cut this from up here and I put it inside the draw function. What happens now? Now the value is always 1, because when the draw function is called all the time, it's declaring a new a variable. Each time it's a new variable, and it's initializing it to 1. So the draw function starts, makes a equals to 1, prints 1, then it increases. But then the function ends and the variable a disappears. The next time it's called, it's declaring a new a variable. So that's why it always stays at 1. It gives value 1, prints 1. So in this case, obviously you have to have a global variable. So if you want to keep track of some objects which you are animating, then probably some variables have to be global. For example, if you have some rectangle in the screen and you want to move this rectangle using some keys on your keyboard, you want to move it up and down and left and right, then you will want to know where is the rectangle. So you will have to have some global variables that keep track of it. Maybe some x variable and some y variable. Now it may sound confusing, like to find out when to use global variables or not, but we will slowly discover how to do it. So remember, the scope of a variable refers to where is the variable visible. Is it visible everywhere? Then it's global. That's a wide scope. And if it's a local variable, which is a variable declared inside a function, then it's a local variable and it has a limited scope.